$10 trillion in, almost nothing out for the last 2 years. America has lived through the fastest, loudest, and most expensive technological gold rush in modern history. Companies from Seattle to Silicon Valley have poured over $10 trillion into artificial intelligence, into chips, data centers, power grids, and promises of a future so big that no one dared to question the bill. Nvidia went from a mid-tier chipmaker to a $3 trillion giant, more valuable than the GDP of most countries. AI clusters costing $500 million each became routine purchases, like office renovations. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, like everyone spent as if the future had already arrived and the profits were guaranteed. But there's a problem, and it's not a small one. It's the kind of problem that ends booms, erases fortunes, and rewrites financial history. The revenue isn't there. Not even close. For every $1 trillion spent on AI infrastructure, only a tiny fraction comes back in actual income, perhaps 60–80 billion, and only 10–15 billion of that is truly new. It's the financial equivalent of pouring an ocean into a coffee cup and hoping it fits. And yet, Wall Street keeps cheering, insisting this time is different. That AI is too powerful, too inevitable, too miraculous to ever disappoint. But math doesn't care about miracles. Math doesn't care about hype. Math only cares about numbers, and right now, the numbers tell a story no one wants to hear. Because if AI spending slows even slightly, if subscriber growth stalls, if revenue fails to catch up, the entire structure, from Nvidia's $3 trillion valuation to Silicon Valley's AI startup empire, begins to wobble. And so, the real question isn't whether AI works, it does. The real question is, what happens when the most hyped technology of our generation meets the oldest truth in finance that numbers eventually have to add up? The technology works. The economics don't. AI can write code, generate images, summarize documents, and answer questions in seconds. It feels magical, and in many ways, it is. That's why CEOs, investors, and governments proudly declare that AI will revolutionize every industry, replace entire categories of work, and create trillions in new wealth. It's the same tone they used during the railroad boom, the radio boom, the internet boom, and the crypto boom. And yet, behind all the magic, behind all the breakthroughs, sits a contradiction so large it threatens the entire $10 trillion AI economy. The technology is real, but the business model isn't. OpenAI, the company that started this modern wave, generates around $3.5 billion a year, but burns over $5 billion just to run its models. That means the more people use ChatGPT, the more money OpenAI loses. Microsoft has added AI into nearly every product it offers, from Office to Bing to its cloud, yet AI-specific revenue is murky and nowhere near the $60 billion it spent on infrastructure. Google pushes Gemini everywhere, in search, in cloud, in Android, but most of it is free, a defensive giveaway to avoid losing market share. Meta built its own massive AI clusters, tens of billions of dollars in spending, yet the consumer-facing AI tools it offers bring in almost no direct revenue. Amazon, despite a decade of Alexa experiments and huge AWS investments, has yet to make AI profitable at scale. So here's the paradox. AI is powerful enough to impress the world, but not powerful enough to pay for itself. The costs are enormous. The revenue is limited, and the gap between them is widening. What we're watching today isn't fraud. And it isn't science fiction. It is something far older, a historical cycle that is repeated across 200 years of technological revolutions. And it always begins the same way. A breakthrough appears. A story forms. Investors rush in. Spending explodes. Then, quietly and inevitably, the math falls apart. This isn't conspiracy, it's history. And to understand what's coming next for AI, we have to go back, far back, to the first time this pattern appeared. We've seen this movie before, long before silicon chips and neural networks. Another technology sparked a frenzy so powerful that it reshaped nations. It was the 1800s, and the miracle of the age wasn't AI, it was railroads. 3.1 The 1800s, Railroad mania investors believed railroads would stitch the world together, and they were right. But they also believed every mile of track would produce endless profit, and they were wrong. Money flooded in. Tracks were laid everywhere, even in places with no passengers, no cargo, and no chance of business. Within a decade, hundreds of rail companies collapsed, bonds defaulted, fortunes evaporated, and yet, railroads survived. The technology lived. The bubble didn't. Because bubbles don't kill technologies, they kill expectations. 3.2 The 1920s. Radio and the first tech stocks. A century later, another miracle appeared. Radio. People believed radio would transform politics, education, entertainment, and it did. But early investors believed every radio company would dominate the future. By the late 1920s, stock valuations were detached from reality. When the 1929 market crash hit, dozens of radio and electrical companies were wiped out. The technology remained, but the hype was gone. 3.3 The dot-com bubble, the closest mirror to AI. Then came the late 1990s, the birth of the internet age. Tech stocks exploded. Pets, com, Webvan, e-toys companies with no profits and barely any revenue were valued in the billions. The Nasdaq soared to 5,000 in March 2000. Then it collapsed to 1,100 by 2002. A 78% crash. $3 trillion in market value vanished. But the internet didn't die. Amazon survived. Google survived. eBay survived. The technology was real. The problem was the story. Investors told themselves that every internet company would win. 3.4 Crypto 2021 Modern flashback. More recently, crypto went through the same arc. A revolutionary promise, massive hype, soaring valuations, rapid collapse. Billions disappeared. Yet blockchain didn't vanish. It simply shrank to its real size, much smaller than the dream that inflated it. 3.5 The pattern emerges across centuries, across industries, across technologies. The same cycle repeats. A breakthrough arrives. A story forms around it. Investors treat the story like reality. Money floods in. Then, when revenue fails to match the tale, the bubble bursts. And in the quiet aftermath, one truth always remains. The technology is real, the valuations were not. AI is now standing at the same crossroads. And the pattern, the one that took down railroads, radio, dot-coms, and crypto, is already writing the next chapter. The bubble algorithm. There is an algorithm older than Wall Street, older than Silicon Valley, older than every invention humans have ever celebrated. It's the pattern that turns new technology into a financial religion and then shatters it. AI did not escape it. AI followed it perfectly. Let's break it down. 4.1 Stage 1. The breakthrough. Every bubble begins with something real. Railroads connected continents. Radio connected voices. The internet connected the world. And AI? AI connects thought. The moment ChatGPT arrived, people realized software could now mimic writing, coding, reasoning, and conversation. It felt revolutionary because it was. That's the spark. The first domino. 4.2 Stage 2. The storytelling. But technology alone never creates a bubble. Stories do. The story around AI was irresistible. It will automate every office job. It will replace search engines. It will produce infinite wealth. It will birth Augie within years. Then the storytellers took the stage. CEOs, VCs, analysts, all urging the world to prepare for a future too massive to miss. And when the story becomes bigger than the spreadsheets, money follows. 4.3 Stage 3. The capital flood. Now comes the flood. The stage AI is still drowning in. Companies spent at a pace that had no precedent. $200 billion in 2023, $350 billion in 2024, $400 plus billion projected in 2025. Almost $1 trillion in just 3 years on infrastructure alone. Microsoft, Google, Amazon each spending tens of billions. Startups burning hundreds of millions just to train models that had no customers. And Nvidia, they became the engine of the entire boom, selling chips at 25,000, 40,000 each, turning data centers into gold mines. When a breakthrough meets cheap money, rationality evaporates. Capital doesn't walk, it stampedes. 4.4 Stage 4. The revenue gap. This is where bubbles quietly start dying. Because eventually always the bill arrives, and the revenue doesn't. For AI, spending $300 billion from the Big Five. Truly new revenue, 10-15B. Ratio, $20 spent for every dollar earned. This isn't a business model, it's a countdown. Every bubble hits this phase the moment when hype smashes into math, and math never backs down. 4.5 Stage 5. The reality check. Then comes the turn. Investors start asking questions they should have asked at the beginning. Where is the profit? When does this break even? How big is the actual market? Why is the electricity bill bigger than the revenue? Why are we paying more for power than we earn from customers? AI is inching toward this stage slowly. Then suddenly, subscription growth is flattening. Enterprise adoption is slower than promised. Costs are rising faster than revenue. And once one major player stumbles, one failure, one write-off, one earnings miss, confidence cracks. History says this part is inevitable. The only question is timing. 4.6 Stage 6. The crash and clearance in every technology cycle. When expectations finally collide with reality, the excess is wiped away. Railroads collapsed. Radio stocks vanished. .coms disappeared by the hundreds. Crypto lost trillions almost overnight. And each time, the aftermath was the same. The technology remained. The illusions didn't. AI will be no different. 4.7 Stage 7. The boring infrastructure. Then, years later, the survivors emerge. AI will be everywhere in apps, devices, workplaces, not as a miracle, but as plumbing. Invisible, essential, profitable in a quiet, unglamorous way. But the trillions of dollars currently priced into the dream, they won't all survive. Because that's how the pattern ends every time. And here's the truth that makes this moment so dangerous. The pattern never ended. It simply put on a new label, AI. Inside the $10 trillion AI machine, history gives us the blueprint. But today gives us the numbers, and the numbers are louder than the hype. We are not heading toward the AI bubble. We are already inside it, right now, this year, this quarter, and the numbers tell a story that's far more dramatic than railroads, radio, .com, or crypto ever did. Let's open the machine and look inside. 5.1 The spending. A scale no industry has ever seen. AI infrastructure spending isn't just high, it's unprecedented. 2023, $200 billion. 2024, $350 billion. 2025 projected, $400 plus billion, nearly $1 trillion in 3 years spent on the physical hardware required to keep AI alive. Data centers, cooling systems, high voltage electrical grids, Nvidia H100 and H200 GPUs, custom chips, TPUs, accelerators, server farms running 24/7. Microsoft alone has spent over $60 billion. Google, $50 billion. Meta, $40 billion. Amazon, $30 billion. And startups backed by venture capital have burned billions more. This is the largest infrastructure rush of the 21st century. Bigger than shale, bigger than 5 grams, bigger than cloud, bigger than crypto. The only question that matters is whether the revenue matches the cost. It doesn't. 5.2 The revenues. Impressive on paper, insufficient in practice. Let's go company by company. OpenAI revenue, $3.5 billion. Compute costs, $5 billion plus net. 2B valuation, $150 billion. 43 revenue subscribers, 10 million paying. 20-month outcome, the more people use it, the more money it loses. Microsoft AI revenue boost, 10-15B year AI spending, $60 billion. Break-even timeline, 4 to 6 years best case. AI doesn't replace old revenue, it adds cost to existing products. Google AI revenue, 15-20B year, mostly from cloud plus search enhancements. AI spending, $50 billion. Reality, most of Gemini is free. A defensive move, not a profit engine. Meta AI spending, $40 billion direct AI revenue. Minimal Meta AI assistant. Free reality. AI helps add slightly, but doesn't create new income streams. Amazon. AWS AI services. 10-15 year AI spending. $30 billion. Alexa. A decade of AI investment, still unprofitable. The summary, $300 billion spent 60-80, return 10-15 new revenue. A 20-to-1 spending to revenue ratio. That's not a business. That's a warning. 5.3 The cost trap. Why I can't escape gravity. The biggest myth in the AI boom is the idea that costs will fall with scale. But the opposite is happening. Inference costs each ChatGPT query. 1-4 cents. If users ask 10 billion questions a month, 100,400 month 1 to 5 year just to answer queries. Training costs training GPT-4. $100 million plus 50 GWh of electricity, enough to power 5,000 US homes for a year. Models are getting bigger, not cheaper. GPT-5 will cost more. Gemini Ultra costs more than Gemini Pro. Data center power consumption. Nvidia H100 GPU draws 700 watts. A cluster of 10,000 chips draws 7 megawatts continuously. A cluster of 50,000-100,000 draws 35-70 megawatts. That's the output of a small power plant running 24/7. Operating cost. 75,150 per year per data center. And companies are building dozens of them. By 2027, AI data centers may consume more electricity than Argentina or Sweden. This isn't a tech limit. It's a physical world limit. Power grids, cooling systems, land, transformers. Hype can grow infinitely. Energy cannot. 5.4 The adoption ceiling. The market isn't big enough. Everyone assumed AI would turn into the next smartphone, a product billions would pay for regularly. Reality is different. ChatGPT. 10 meters subscribers flat growth. Copilot. 5M subscribers Gemini Premium. 2M subscribers. These numbers are tiny compared to Netflix, Spotify, iCloud, or even Peloton. Businesses aren't migrating at the promised speed. Most don't need custom models. Most don't want to pay for recurring AI fees. Most don't see productivity increases large enough to justify the cost. AI improves things, but incrementally, not explosively. MIT found coding assistants boost productivity by 26, not 300%. Useful? Yes. Life-changing? Not yet. Worth trillions? Number 5.5 Nvidia, the most exposed giant in the world. Nvidia is the beating heart of the AI boom. Stock, $150, $900 market cap, $3 trillion plus PE ratio, 65 revenue spike, $15 billion 2022, $47 billion 2023, $100 billion plus 2024. But all of this depends on AI capex never slowing. If Microsoft slows purchases, if Google delays a data center build, if Meta shifts priorities, if Amazon pulls back, Nvidia's revenue collapses first. The company is priced as if AI spending will grow forever. Energy constraints don't exist. Profitability doesn't matter. Every business will adopt AI. One of the use cases will plateau. History says no industry grows at this speed indefinitely, especially not one dependent on trillion-dollar data centers and global electricity capacity. When AI spending slows even by 10%, Nvidia feels it instantly. And so the present day looks uncannily familiar. Massive spending, minimal new revenue, surging valuations, slowing user growth, rising costs, physical limits, a growing gap between the story and the math. We aren't approaching the bubble phase. We are in it. And when the math breaks, the consequences won't be abstract. They'll land in households, retirement accounts, index funds, and savings plans across America. What the AI crash means for your money. For months, the AI boom has felt distant, like something happening on Wall Street, in corporate boardrooms, in data centers powered by megawatts of electricity. But that distance is an illusion, because the AI bubble isn't being funded only by billionaires and tech giants. It's being funded by you. and by millions of ordinary Americans who don't even realize they're holding the risk. Let's make this real. 6.1 The hidden exposure in your retirement. If you own an S&P 500 index fund in your 401k, IRA, or brokerage account, you already hold Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Alphabet together. These companies now account for over 30% of many major U.S. stock indexes. That means if AI spending slows, if Nvidia drops 50-70, if big tech re-rates 20-40, your retirement account goes down with them. Not because you chose to bet on AI, but because the system put you in the bet automatically. This is how bubbles quietly pull everyday people in. Not through speculation, but through index exposure. 6.2 The wealth illusion. Right now, millions of Americans open their investment apps and feel richer than ever. 401ks are at all-time highs. IRAs are up double digits. Brokerage accounts look healthy. But here's the truth nobody wants to say. It's not real wealth. It's bubble wealth. It's wealth based on Nvidia trading at 65 earnings. Wealth based on $10 trillion in AI spending with no matching revenue. Wealth based on expectations, not fundamentals. And bubble wealth is the most dangerous kind because it disappears quickly and without warning. 6.3 The job market shock. AI isn't just draining capital, it's shaping the job market. When the bubble pops, tech layoffs accelerate. AI startups vanish, 90% expected to fail. Tens of thousands lose jobs in engineering, research, design, marketing, cloud services. Construction and infrastructure jobs hit next. Those massive data center projects, canceled or delayed. Then the ripple spreads to local economies. Communities counting on AI campuses for growth suddenly feel the shock. Housing demand drops. Tax revenues fall. Local businesses lose customers. Unemployment rises. It happened in the dot-com collapse. It happened in the oil patches. It will happen again. 6.4 The consumer trap. AI promised to save people time and money, but so far has done the opposite. AI subscriptions add up. ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. Companies pass rising AI infrastructure costs to consumers. Cloud services become more expensive. Electricity demand pushes utility bills higher. And when corporate profits fall, companies raise prices elsewhere to compensate. Your paycheck doesn't stretch further. Your bills do. 6.5 The psychological squeeze. Bubbles have a unique way of hurting people emotionally first, financially second. Recency bias. Tech always recovers. It always goes up. Normalcy bias. This time is different. AI is too big to fail. Herd behavior. If everyone owns tech stocks, it must be safe. These are the same biases that kept investors holding internet stocks all the way down from the Nasdaq peak of 5,000 to the bottom at 1,100, a 78% wipeout. And now, investors are repeating the same emotional script, line for line, without realizing it. 6.6 What it means for the middle class. For everyday Americans, the consequences are painfully simple. Smaller retirement accounts, shrinking college funds, slower wage growth, higher living costs, more job insecurity, rising stress and anxiety. Because when tech giants sneeze, the entire economy catches a cold. AI isn't just a technological revolution. It's a financial event, one that touches every paycheck, every household, every plan for the future. And if the bubble bursts the way history suggests, the people least prepared and least responsible will feel it the most. The story of AI is no longer about companies or chips or code. It's about you, your savings, your stability, your financial future. And that brings us to the final reveal. This bubble isn't just big, it's predictable. When the hype clears, what's left? Every bubble ends the same way, not with a bang, but with the realization. A slow, creeping awareness that the story everyone believed, the miracle they invested in, the future they were promised, was built on numbers that never added up. And when that awareness finally breaks through, the spell shatters. We're approaching that moment now. Not because AI is fake, it isn't. Not because AI won't change the world, it will. But because the $10 trillion AI boom was priced as if AI had already replaced human labor, already reconstructed global economies, already unlocked infinite productivity. It hasn't. And the gap between promise and reality is where bubbles die. 7.1 The entire cycle in one sentence. If you remember nothing else, remember this: AI is real, but the $10 trillion AI bubble is not. Survive the bubble, and the technology will serve you. Believe the bubble, and the technology will bury you. 7.2 Separating the tech from the dream. After every crash in history, the same thing happens. The hype evaporates, the excess gets wiped out, the survivors rebuild quietly, the technology becomes boring. And then it becomes essential. That's the cycle. It happened with railroads. It happened with radio. It happened with the internet. It happened with crypto. And it will happen with AI. 10 years from now, AI won't be a miracle. It'll be infrastructure like electricity, databases, and cloud servers. Invisible, stable, used by everyone, hyped by no one. But the market valuation? The dream that $10 trillion in investment will generate infinite returns? That part doesn't survive. Maybe $8 trillion of it disappears quietly, erased as companies write down failed projects, abandon half-built data centers, or consolidate in fire sale acquisitions. The technology remains. The illusions don't. 7.3 Investor awakening. Most people don't lose money because technology fails. They lose money because they chase a story that feels irresistible, a story everyone repeats, a story that drowns out the math. But we don't have to repeat that mistake. We can step out of the narrative and look at the numbers. Slowing subscriber growth, rising compute costs, unsustainable energy use, $300 billion spent for 1015B in new revenue, 65 PE ratios, trillions priced into expectations, not reality. History isn't whispering, it's shouting. Now is the moment to think like risk managers, not believers. To ask, what happens if Nvidia slows? What happens if AI revenue plateaus? What happens if energy limits hit? What happens if startups fail? And most importantly, what happens to my money when the expectations break? Because someone will be left holding the bag. It doesn't have to be you. 7.4 The Dollar Age closing message. This isn't conspiracy. This isn't doom. This is history. It's the same 200-year pattern repeating again, only bigger, louder, and pricier. They built it. We inherited it. It worked until it didn't. And now, we stand at the edge of a new chapter, where hype fades, reality emerges, and fortunes shift. If this changed how you see the AI boom, not as a miracle machine, but as another cycle in a long chain of human overconfidence, then you're exactly who this channel is for. Because the truth was never hidden. It was simply ignored. Subscribe to Dollar Age. Share this with someone who thinks AI can't crash. And remember, bubbles don't end when everyone gets rich. They end when everyone believes they can't end. And that moment comes faster than anyone expects.